Alrighty. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Wordy-Wednesdays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggeth, and today we're going to be reading more of Merchanter's Luck by the inestimable C.J. Cherryh. Um, so we've been introduced to basically our two main characters. There's a few more that'll pop up in the book, but these are our protagonists, our dual protagonists, Sandor Kreja and or Kreja, I'm not sure, and Allison Reilly. And Allison Reilly comes from the ship, the merchanter, the long hauler, Dublin Again, and she is of the Reilly clan. They are a well-known name in space. That's with a capital N. And she and Sandor, who is Sandor is just kind of a down on his luck merchanter, solo hauler with a small ship that is capable of jump, but that's about it. Um, and he is carrying around serious baggage and serious trauma, and it is evident in basically everything about the ship and him. Um, they meet at a bar, and he follows her around, and they have a nice little one-night stand. Um, but what he really wants is a shipping partner, someone to do hauls with, and he does it on a whim. He asks her on a whim, and knowing full well that she's a million light years out of his league. She does not say yes. It is not a complete fantasy. Um, but she lets slip that Dublin is headed for Pell, and he's like, "I'll meet you there," and she's like, "No, you won't. It's a nice thought, but have a good one. Um, it was nice meeting you, but we are never going to see each other again." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. I will meet you there." And so, against all sanity, reason, and better judgment, he is solo, hauling nothing but ass on his ship Lucy, his ass specifically, all the way to Pell, which this is happening not super long after. I don't know the exact time frame yet. Not too long after the events of Down Below Station. Um, I would hesitate to call this a direct sequel. Chronology-wise, it is, for all intents and purposes, but in terms of events and characters, it isn't. Um, New cast, new everything. Um, though I can say we will probably see some familiar faces, or at least have them referenced. So Sandor's background includes that one lovely time when the Maziani raided his ship and killed absolutely everybody but him and two siblings. They all died. Um, and then over the next decade or so, those two siblings also wound up dying. Although from the older sibling, Sandor, or Sandy, learned as much as he could about operating the ship and can, in fact, operate it solo, um, which is very impressive, but also insanely dangerous. Um, there's lots that goes into it. There's calculations that go into it. There's timing that goes into it. You need good reflexes. You need the drugs required to stay sane during jump. So it is quite an ordeal, and it is described as such. Um, Now, Allison, for her part, is actually a pretty ambitious individual. She wants ultimately to become the head of the ship, the leader, the old man, as it were, the captain of Dublin Again someday. Um, Even though that's basically not going to be possible because there's a ton of people in line for the spot before she is. Um, so Sandor's offer to work with her actually does strike a bit of a chord with her. It has piqued her interest, and he has piqued her interest. So we'll see if Sandor can actually make it to Pell. With that, I think I will get rocking and a rolling with the next chapter of Merchanter's Luck. Chapter 4. The velocity fell away. Some time yet before the scan image had time to be relayed by the buoy to Pell Central, advising them that a ship was incoming, and double that time before Central's message could come back to Lucy. Sandor extricated himself from his nest with small, numb movements, offended by the reek of his own body. His mouth tasted of copper and bile. His hands were stiff and refused coordinated movement. He rolled out of the cushion in the pit and hit the deck on his knees in a skittering of empty water bottles and foil papers sliding under his hand. "Wake up, Sandy," Comp was telling him. He reached the keyboard, still kneeling, hooked an arm over it, and managed to code in the 101 that stopped it, about the most that his numbed brain was capable of doing in straight sequence. Wake up. Not that much time left before they would want answers out of him, before his absence from controls would be noticed. He had the pulsar still on his wrist. He levered himself up by his arms on the counter, looked at the blurring lights and the keys, trying to recall the sequence that would put it on watch. Autopilot was still engaged. Lucy was following lane instructions from the buoy. That was all right. He located the other control, which his stomach spasmed and his vision grayed, got the code in. No acceleration now. He could not have stood with any stress hauling he could not have stood with any stress hauling at him. He groped for the edge of the counter at his right and worked his way up out of the pit. Walked blind along the slump. Oh, I skipped a page. Walked blind along the counter until he blinked clear on the lighted white of the corridor that led to maintenance storage and the cubbyhole of a shower in the maintenance section. He peeled everything off that he was wearing, shoved it in the chute, and hoped never to see it again, felt his way into the cabinet and leaned there while jets blasted off filth and dead skin and shed hair. Soap. He lathered, found his razor in its accustomed place, and shaved by feel, with his eyes shut and the water coursing over him. He felt alive again, at least marginally. He never wanted to leave the warmth and the cleanliness. Could have collapsed to the floor of the cabinet and curled up and slept in the warm water. No. Out again. There was not that much time. He shut the water off, staggered out into the chill air, and gathered clothes from the locker there. He half dried, pulled the coveralls on, and wiped his wet hair back from his eyes. The pulsar, waterproof, had not alerted him. Lucy was still all right. He went out into the corridor with an armload of towels and disinfectant and went back to clean up the pit, smothering the queasiness in his stomach. He disposed of all the untidiness, another trip back to storage and disposal, then came back and fell into the cushion that stank now of disinfectant, shut his eyes, wilted into the contours, fighting sleep with a careful periodic fluttering of his eyelids. They already had his ID, lying though that was. It was automatic in Lucy's computer squeal, never ceasing. He had the station scan image fr- He had the station scan image from the buoy, estimates of the positions of all the ships in Pell's system, large and small, and when he brought his mind to focus on that, on the uncommon number of them, a disturbance wended its way through his consciousness, a tiny ticking alarm at the scope of what he was seeing. Ships in numbers more than expectation. Traffic patterns, lanes in great complexity, shuttle routes for approach to the world of down below, to moons and mining interests. A collection of merchanters who got together to set rates and to threaten union with strikes, who served union ports and disdained the combines. That was all it had been. But it had grown, expanded beyond his recollections. Saul trade sounded half fanciful until now. Harder to run a scam here if they were short and overcrowded, or it might even be easier if station officers were too busy to run checks, if they were getting such an influx on the strength of these rumors that a ship with questionable papers could lose itself in the data flow. No, it was just a matter of rethinking the approach and the tactics.
This is Pell Central.
A sudden voice reached him, and the pulsar stung him mercilessly, confusing him for the instant which to reach for first. He shut the pulsar down, keyed in the mic, leaning forward.
You have come in at velocity above limit. Consult regulations regarding Pell operational restrictions, Section 2, Number 22. This is live transmission. Further instruction assumes you have brought your speed within tolerance and keep to lane. If otherwise, patrol will be moving on intercept and your time is limited to make appropriate response. Query why this approach. Identify immediately. We are now picking up your initial dump, Lucy. Please confirm ID and make all appropriate response.
It was all ancient chatter, from the moment of station's reception of his entry, the running monologue of light-bound calm that assumed he would have begun talkback much, much earlier.
We don't pick up voice, Lucy. Query why silence.
He reached lethargically for the comm and punched in, frightened in his pricklishness on station's part. This is Stevens Lucy, inbound on 4579 your zenith on buoy assigned lane. I confirm your contact, Pell Central. Had a little comm trouble. This was a transparent lie, standard for any ship illicitly out of contact. Please acknowledge reception. In his ear, Pell was still talking, constant flow now, telling him what it perceived so that he would know where he was on the timeline. Appreciate your distress, Pell Central. This is Stevens talking of Stevens Lucy, merchanter of Wyatt Star Combine, US 48-335Y. Had a scare on entry, minor malfunction, put me out of contact a moment. I'm all right now. Had a backup engaged, no further difficulty. Please give approach and docking instructions. I'm solo on this run and wanting a sleepover, Pell Central. I appreciate your assistance. Over. Communication from Pell ran on, an overlapping jabber now, as the comm board gave up trying to compress it and created two flows that would drive a sane man mad. He slumped in the seat, which embraced him and held his aching bones, unforgiving even in its softest places. He blinked from time to time, kept his eyes open, to make sure the lines on the approach graph matched. He listened for key words out of the comm flow, but Pell seemed convinced now that he was honest. Still possible, another dimmer voice insisted in his head, that some patrol ship could pop up out of nowhere, meaning business. Station Op, in the long hours, began to send him questions and instructions. He was on the verge of hallucinating. Once Station queried him sharply, and he awoke in a sweat, eyes scanning the instruments wildly, trying to find out where he was, how close, and too close, entering the zone of traffic.
You all right, Lucy?
The voice was asking him.
Lucy, what's going on out there?
All right, he murmured. I'm here, receiving you clear. Say again, Pell Central? Getting in was a nightmare. It was like trying to line up a jump blind drunk. He stared slack-jawed at the screens and did the hair-breadth line-up maneuvers on visual alone, which no larger ship could have dared try, but he was far too fuzzed to use comp and read it out, only to take its automated warnings, which never came. He was proud of himself with a manic satisfaction as he made the final touch, like the same drunks successfully walking a straight line, only one beep out of comp in the whole process, and Lucy nestled into the lock-to, dead center. He was so satisfied he just sat there. Dockside comm came on and told him to open his docking ports, and his hands were shaking so violently he had trouble getting the caps off the switches.
This is Pell Customs and Dock Security.
Another voice came through.
Have your papers ready for inspection.
He reached for comm. Pell Customs, this is Stevens of Lucy. We've come in without cargo due to a scheduling foul-up at Viking. You're welcome to check my holds. I'm Wyatt Starr Combine. I'm carrying just ship consumption goods. Papers are ready. He tried to gather his nerves to face official questions, suddenly recalled the gold stored in a drop panel in the aftmost hold, and his stomach turned over. He reached and opened the docking access. In answer to a blinking light and a repeated request from dock crews on the shielded line channel, and his ears popped from the slight pressure change as the hatch opened. Sorry, Pell, dock control. Didn't mean to miss the adjustment. I'm a little tired. A pause.
Lucy, this is Pell Dock Authority. Are you all right aboard? Do you need medical assistance?
Negative, Pell Dock Authority.
Query, why solo?
He was too muddled to think. Just limped in, Peldock. The fear was back, a knot clenched in the vicinity of his stomach. This is a hired crew ship. My last crew met relatives on Viking and ran out on me. I had no choice but to take her out myself, and I couldn't get cargo. I limped in all right, but I'm pretty tired. There was long silence. It frightened him, as all thoughtful reactions did, and sent a charge of adrenaline through him.
Congratulations, then, Lucy. Lucky you got here at all. Any special assistance needed?
No, ma'am. Just want a sleepover. Except, is Reilly's Dublin at dock? Got a friend I want to find.
That's affirmative on Dublin, Lucy. Been in dock 2 days. Any message?
No, I'll find her. A silence.
Right, Lucy. We'll want to talk to you about dock charges, but we can do the paperwork tomorrow if you're willing to leave your ship under Pell security seal.
Yes, ma'am, but I need to come by your exchange and arrange credit. A pause.
That was Wyatt WSC, Lucy?
Wyatt Starr, yes, ma'am. A 20, that's all. Just a drink, a sandwich, and a place to sleep. Want to open an account for WSC at Pell. Transfer of 3,000 Union scrip. I can cover it. Another pause.
No difficulty, Lucy. You just leave her open all the way, and we'll put our own security on it while customs checks her. What's your alliance ID?
Apprehension flooded through him, rapid sort in a tired brain. Don't have that, Pell Doc. I'm fresh from Union Side.
Union side number, then. 686-543-560-S. 686-543-560-S. Got you clear then, Lucy, on temporary.
Personal name? Stevens. Edward Stevens, owner and captain.
Luck to you, Stevens, and a pleasant stay.
Thank you, ma'am. He reached a trembling hand for the board, broke contact, and shut down everything. Put a lock on comp and on the log. And already in the back of his mind he was calculating about the gold, about turning that with a little dockside trade, a little deal off the manifest, very quiet, putting the profit into account, making it look right. There were ways. Dealers who would fake a bill. It might be good here. Might be the place he had hoped to find. And Dublin. She was here. He hauled himself out of the cushion and walked back to the access lift at the side of the lounge, opened the hatch below, and got a waft of mortally cold air. He got a jacket from the locker, shrugged it on, and patted his coveralls pocket to be sure he had the papers, then committed himself and took the lift down into the access way, got out facing the short, dingy corridor to the lock and the yellow lighted gullet of the station access tube at the end. He shivered convulsively, zipped his jacket, and walked down and through the tube into the noise of the dock and the thumping of the machinery that was busy blowing out Lucy's small systems. Customs was there. Police were. A noisy horde of stationers beyond the customs barrier, a crowd, a riot. He stopped in the middle of the access ramp with the customs agents walking toward him, neat men in brown suits with foreign insignia. His expression betrayed shock in his expression betrayed shock oh gosh, an instant before he realized it and tried to ignore it all as he fumbled his papers out of his pocket. "I talked with the dockmaster's office," he said, offering them. His heart beat double time, as it did at such moments, while the crowd kept up the noise and commotion beyond the barricade. The senior officer looked over the forged papers and stamped them with a seal. "Your office is supposed to put my ship under seal," Sandor went on, trying not to look at the police who waited beyond, trying not to harass the agents at their duty. "Got no cargo this trip. They fouled me up at Viking. I'm bone tired and needin' sleep. No crew, no passengers, no arms, no drugs except ship's use pharmaceuticals. I'm headed for the exchange office right now to get some cash." "Carrying money?" 3,000 Union scrip aboard. Not on me. They promised me I could do the exchange papers later, after sleep." "Items of value on your person?" "None. Going to a sleepover. Going to get a station card." "We'll locate you on the card when we want you." The man looked up at him. It was the same face customs folk gave him everywhere, hardly welcoming. Sandor gave it back his best, earnest stare. The man handed the false papers back, and Sandor stuffed them into his inside breast pocket, started down the ramp. The police moved in. "Captain Stevens," one said. He stopped, his heart jumping against his ribs. "You'll want to pick up a regulations sheet at the office," the officer said. "Our procedures are a little different here than Union side. Did they give you trouble clearing Viking, then?" He stared, simply blank. "Lieutenant Perez," the officer identified himself. "Alliance Security Operations. Was it an understandable scheduling error, or otherwise?" He shook his head, confused in the crowd noise that echoed in the distant overhead. The question made no sense from a dockside policeman, from customs, from whatever they were. "I don't know," he said. I don't know. I'm a marginer. It happens sometimes. Somebody didn't have their papers straight, or some bigger ship snatched it. I don't know." The policeman nodded, once and slowly. It looked like dismissal. Sandor turned, hastened on through the barrier and toward the milling crowd, afraid, trying not to walk like a Liberty-long drunk, and trying to figure out why they chose his section of the dock to gather and what it all was. I'm going to repeat that, because I mangled that sentence, because it kind of goes on a while. Sandor turned, hastened on through the barrier and toward the milling crowd, afraid, trying not to walk like a Liberty-long drunk, and trying to figure out why they chose his section of the dock to gather and what it all was. "Hey, Captain!" someone yelled as he met the crowd. "Why did you do it?" He looked that way, saw no one in particular, cast about again as he pushed his way through. Panic surged in him, wanting out, away from this place. Hands touched him, a camera bobbed over the shoulders of the crowd, and he stared into the lens in one dim-witted moment of fright before ducking away from it. "What route?" someone asked him. "You find some new null point, Captain?" He shook his head. "Nothing like that. I just came through Wessons and Tri-Point." He kept walking, terrified at the stationers who had come to stare at him. Someone thrust a mic in his face. "You know the whole station's been following your comm for 5 hours, Captain? Did you know that?" "No." He stared helplessly, realizing his face. His face, recorded, made public with Lucy's name and number. "I'm tired," he said, but the microphone persisted, thrust toward him. "You're Captain Edward Stevens, right? From Wyatt Star? What's the tie with Dublin? She, you said. Personal?" "Right." A small voice, a tremulous voice. His knees were shaking. "Excuse me." "How long have you been out?" The mic followed him, persistent. "You have any special trouble running solo, Captain?" "A month or so. I don't know. I haven't comped it yet. No, I don't know." "You're meeting someone of Reilly's Dublin, you said." "I didn't say. It's personal." He hesitated, searched desperately for a way of escape that would get him to the offices. Blue Dock. That was where he had to go. Stations were universal in that arrangement, if not in their interiors. He was on Green. It could not be far. He tried to recall the docks from years ago. He had been 11, with Ross and Mitri by him. "What's her name, Captain? Is there more to it?" "Excuse me, please. I'm tired. I just want to get to the bank. I didn't do anything." "You cleared Viking to Pell in a month in a ship that size? Solo? What kind of rig is she?" "Excuse me, please." "You don't call what you did remarkable?" "I call it stupid. Please." He shoved his way through, with people surging all about him, his heart hammering in panic. People, people as far as he could see. And of a sudden, she was there. Allison Reilly was straight in front of him, wide-eyed as the rest of the crowd. He shoved his way past the startled curious and at the last moment kept his hands off her, stood swaying on his feet and seeing the anger on her face. "You're crazy," she said. "You're outright crazy." "I told you I'd see you here. I'm tired. Can we talk when I get back from the bank?" She took his elbow and guided him through the crowd. The microphone caught up with him again. The newswoman shouted questions he half heard, and Allison Reilly ignored them, pulled him across the dock to the line of bars, toward a mass of quieter folk, a line of spacers. Fewer and fewer of the stationer crowd pursued them, and then none. The spacer line closed about them with sullen and forbidding stares turned toward the intruding stationers. He paid no attention then where she aimed him, headed through the dark doorway of a bar and fell into a chair at the nearest available table. He slumped down over his folded arms on the surface in blessed quiet and tried to come out of it when someone shook him by the shoulder. Allison Reilly put a drink into his hand. He sipped at it and gagged because he had expected a stiff drink and got fruit juice and sugar froth. But it was food. It helped. And he looked up fuzzily into Allison's face while he drank. A ring of other faces had gathered, male and female, spacers ringing the table, silver clad, white, green and gold and motley insystemers, just staring, all manner of patches, all the same silent observation. "Sandwich," someone said, and he looked left as a male hand set a plate in front of him. He disposed of as much of it as he could in several graceless bites, then stuffed the rest, napkin wrapped, into his jacket pocket, a survival habit and one which suddenly embarrassed him in the face of all these people who knew what the odds were and what kind of poverty would drive a man to push a ship like that. Dublin knew what he had done. Someone on Dublin had talked, and they knew he had done it straight through, stringing the jumps, the only way the likes of Lucy could possibly have tailed Dublin. They would arrest him soon. Someone would talk it over with some official in Station Central, and they would start running checks and talking to merchanters all over this station, some one of whom might have a memory jogged. His now notorious ship, his face, his voice carried all over station on open vid. He could not deal quietly, take that 14,000 gold off the ship, deal as he was accustomed to deal, quietly, on the docks. Not now. He was dead scared. Allison Reilly was there, and the look on her face was what he had wanted, but he was up against the real cost of it now, and he found it too much. "Allison," he said, when he sat down in the other chair and leaned on her arms looking at him, "I want to talk to you. Somewhere else." "Come on," she said. "You come with me." He pushed the chair back and tried to get up, needed her arm when he tried to walk, to keep his balance in Station's too heavy gravity. Some spacer muttered a ribald and ancient joke about a man just off a solo run, and it was true, at least as far as the mind went, but the rest of him was dead. He walked, a miserable blue of lights and moving bodies, the dock's wide, echoing chill and light, and then a doorway, a confusion of bizarre wallpaper and a desk and a clerk, a sleepover, a carpeted hall in either direction from here. He leaned on the counter with his head propped on his hand while Allison straightened out the details and the finances. Then she took his arm again and led him down a corridor. "Keep them out of here!" she yelled back at someone, who said all right and left. She carted a door open and put him through, into a sleepover room with a wide white bed. She turned around then and tried to put his arms around her. He turned around then and tried to put his arms around her. Nearly fell down. Oh, I don't know how to read. I skipped a line. He turned around then and tried to put his arms around her. She shoved him in the middle of his chest and he nearly fell down. "Idiot!" she said to him, which was not the welcome he had hoped for, but what he reckoned now he deserved. He stood there paralyzed in his misery and his mental state until she pulled him over to the bed and pushed him down onto it. She started working at his clothes with rough, abrupt movements, as if she were still furious. "Roll over!" she hissed at him, and pulled at his shoulder and threw the covers over him. And he fell asleep. Chapter 5. He woke, aware of bare, smooth skin next to his own, of a warm arm about him, and turned, blinked in confusion. She was still there, in the room's artificial twilight. "Allison," he said hoarsely, hoarse because his voice, like the rest of him, was not in the best of form. He stroked her hair and woke her without really meaning to ruin her sleep. She said, looking up at him. "About time." But when he tried with her, there was nothing he could do. He lay there in wretched embarrassment and thinking that at this point she would probably get up and get dressed and walk out of his life forever, about the time he had just spent. "What could you expect?" she said, and patted his face and took his hand and carried it against her mouth, all of which so bewildered him that he simply lay there staring into her eyes and expecting her to follow that statement with something direly cutting. She did not. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I'm really sorry. There's tomorrow. A few more days. What are you going to do, Stevens? Is it worth the handful of days you bought with this stunt?" He thought about it. For a moment he found it even hard to breathe. It really deserved laughing about, but the whole situation it really deserved laughing about, the whole situation, because there was something funny in it. He managed at least to shrug. "So, well, maybe. But I think I'm done after this, Riley. I don't think I can do it again." "You're absolutely out of your mind." He found a grin possible, which at least kept up his image. "I don't make a habit of it." "Why'd you do it?" "Why not?" She frowned, scowled. She shook her head after a moment, got up on her elbow, looking down at him, and traced the old scar on his side, a gentle touch. "What are you going to tell your company?" He lay there, stared at the ceiling with his head on his arms, considered the question, and truth, and lies, grinned finally, and shrugged with what he hoped was monumental unconcern. "I don't know. I'll think of something good." A fist landed on his ribs. "I'll bet you will. No cargo, no clearance. You jumped out of Viking on the wrong heading. What are they going to do to you, Stevens?" "Actually," he said, "it's a minor problem." He shut his eyes, still with a smile painted on his face and a weariness sitting on his chest that seemed the accumulation of years. "I'll talk my way out of it, never fear." And after a moment, "Why don't we try it again, Riley? I think it might work." It did, oddly enough. And that, he thought, lying there with Allison Reilly tangled with him and content, was because he had started thinking again how to con his way through, and about saving his skin and Lucy's, which got his blood moving again, however tired and sore he was. He was remarkably placid in contemplating his ruin, which he figured he could at least postpone until Allison Reilly had put out of Pell Station aboard Dublin some few days hence. And there was the gold. He had that. If by some miracle no one had known his face, he might get himself papers, get himself cargo, go back to Voyager without routing through Viking. A chancy set, a chancy set of jumps. Then come in with appropriate stamps on his papers to satisfy Viking. If Dublin had not reported that message about his change of destination. He could find out. Allison might know. Would tell him. And maybe, the irrepressible thought occurred to him, he could claim some tie to Dublin for the benefit of Pell authorities. Use that supposed connection for a reference, at least enough for dock charges. She might do it for him. He thought of that, lying there with her arms about him, in a bed she had paid for, that he might work one remarkable scam and get himself a stake charged to Dublin's account, which would solve all his problems but Viking, and, with the gold, get him a real set of papers. He turned his head and looked at her, into eyes which suddenly opened, dark and deep and warm at the moment, and his gut knotted up at what he was thinking to do, which was to beg or to cheat her, and neither was palatable. She hugged him close, and he fell to kissing her, which was another pleasure he had discovered was different with Allison Reilly. It was hardly fair, he thought, that he himself had fallen into such hands as Allison's, who could con him in ways he had never visited on his most deserving victims. She was having herself a good time, not even maliciously, while he was paying all he had for it. And it was finished if she knew, in all senses. She might not, even then, turn him in, but she would know, and hate him. And that was, at the moment, as bad as station police. Actually, he said, during a lull, actually, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not in trouble. It's all covered, my shifting to Pell. Oh? She stiffened, leaned back, and looked at him. How? Because I've got an account to shift here. I'm a small enough operator, the Combine gives me quite a bit of leeway, and all they ask is that I make a profit for 'em. They let me come and go where I can. They let me come and go where I can do that. Wyatts can't be figuring down to the last degree where to have me break off an operation. That's my decision to make. You made Pell sound good. I heard the rumors, and you just tipped the balance. Hmm. There was a sober look on her face. Not me at all, was it? I could have taken my time getting here. I wanted to see you. That part's so. The sober look became a thinking look, a different, colder one. Well, then, I guess you will get out of it all, won't you? I will. No question. Huh, she said again. She rolled for the edge of the bed and he caught her wrist, stopping her. Where are you going? Can't stay any longer. I have duty. What did I say? You didn't say anything. I just have my watch coming up. It was something. What was it? Her face grew distressed. She jerked at his hand without success. Let go. Not until you tell me what I said. If you put a mark on me, Stevens, you'll regret it. You want to think that through? I'm trying to talk to you. I told you the truth. I don't think you know the truth from your backside. You didn't tell me the truth, and I'll bet you didn't tell it to customs out there. His heart slammed against his ribs, harder and harder. So does Dublin tell the whole truth to customs? Don't ask me to believe that. Sure. I figure there are all kinds of reasons someone would give me one story and customs. Oh, sorry. The line break threw me. I figure there are all kinds of reasons someone would give me one story and customs another, but maybe only one reason a ship would dog us the way you have. And I don't like the smell of it. You never have answered me straight, not once, and I gave you your chance. Now maybe you can break my arm, and maybe you even figure you can kill me to shut me up, but, mister, I've got several hundred cousins who know who I'm with and where, and you'll find yourself taking a slow voyage on Dublin if you don't let me out of here right quick. Is that why you stayed? To ask questions? What do you expect? He stared at her with more pain than he had felt since Ross died, let go her arm so suddenly she almost rolled off her edge of the bed, and she sat there rubbing her wrist and glaring at him. He had no wish to be looked at. Go on, he said. I'm not stopping you. Don't tell me I've hurt your feelings. Impossible. Go on, get out of here and let me sleep. It's my room. I paid the bill. That hurt. I'll take care of it. I'll put the 50 in Dublin's account, and the 50 before that. Just take yourself off. No worry about the cash. It really looks like it. What are you doing, following us to get me to pay your bar bill? What are you doing, following us to get me to pay your bar bills? You gonna hit me up for finance? I don't charge, he said bitterly. His face burned. Go on, out. She stood up, stalked over, collected her clothes from the chair, and started pulling them on, paused, sealing up the silver coveralls, and looked back at him. Probably I'd better pay your rent for the week, she said. I think you've got troubles, Stevens. I think your combine's going to have your head on a platter. You're not going to turn a profit on this. Don't bother yourself. I don't want your money and I don't want your help. I'll handle my combine. Oh, sure, you're going to explain how it all seemed a good idea at the time. This story's going to be told over and over again, bigger every time it hits another station. How you did it to see me again, how you did it for a bet, how you took out a Viking the wrong direction and triple jumped solo through Chi Point, that you're a Maziani spotter or a Union spy with a hyped up ship or an outright thief, and you know how much Dublin wants herself mixed into the story. The tale will get back to Viking without our help. They'll hear it on Wyatt's real early. They'll hear it everywhere ships go, because they're all here. Every ship, every family, every name in the Merchanters' Alliance, and then some. And Union military's coming in to call. It's going to spread. You understand that? He thought about that with a chill feeling in his stomach. So, well, then it looks like I've got a bigger problem than you do, don't I? I'm sure Dublin's going to survive it. Bastard. You came out on the dock, Reilly. That was your doing. I didn't arrange it. I've no doubt you'd have come to Dublin asking for me. You used our name over calm. What more did it lack? Out. You're flat broke, Stevens, unless you're carrying something under the plates. And they'll look. You're going to get your ship attached, at the least. I've got funds. What have you got? Maybe it's none of your business. You don't. Not worth this trip. None of your business. Huh. He stared at her, unwilling to fight it out. Watched her walk to the door and stop. She stood there, looked back finally, dropping her hand from the door switch. You tell me, she said, really, why you pulled this. Like you said. Which? Take your pick. I'm not going to argue the point. No. You tell me, Stevens, how you're going to rig this. I really want to know. He shrugged, sitting up, hooked his arm in the pillows, and propped himself up against the headboard. I told you already what I'm going to do. It's no problem. I think you're in bad trouble. Nothing I can't solve. So I'm flattered I made such an impression on you. But I'm not why you came. What made you? He tried a wry smile, reckoning he could hold it. Well, it seemed reasonable at the time. I keep wanting to believe you, and I'm not getting any encouragement. I'm used to running solo, he said in a lingering silence. It's no big deal. I've jumped her alone, and I've two jumped. She's good, Lucy is. She kept up with your fancy Dublin for sure. I'll tidy it up with WSC when I get back to Viking. I wouldn't mind seeing you then. She came back down and sat on the edge of the bed, leaned with her hand on his, and looked into his face at too close an interval for comfortable pretenses. "Possibly," she said, "you can claim fatigue and they'll let you out of this. Maybe it was just being out there too long." "Thanks. I hadn't thought of that one. I'll try it." "I'd guess you'd better try something. You are in trouble, aren't you?" He said nothing. "Stevens, if it is Stevens, how much truth have you told me, at any time?" "Some." "About what you are. How about that for a start?" He tried to shrug, which was not easy at close quarters. "I'm what I told you." "You're broke, aren't you? And in a lot of trouble. I think maybe you thought I could finance you. I think maybe that's what this is all about. That you really did come chasing after me. Because you've overrun your margin at Viking, haven't you? And maybe your company's going to be asking questions. And now you've got a combine ship where she doesn't belong." "No." "No?" "I said no." "You know, Stevens, I shouldn't ask this, but it does occur to me that you just may not be combine." He stared at her, at a frown which was not anger, his hold on his silence loosened for no good reason, but that she knew. He knew that she knew. She was headed back to her ship, to talk there for certain. "Not, are you?" "No, I'm not. I'm—" His arm went out to stop her from bolting, but that shift had not been to get up, and he was left embarrassed. "Look, WSC never noticed me. I made the money. I never cost them a credit. Before now. I'll put it back. You are a pirate." "No." "All right. So I wouldn't sit here if I thought that. So you skim. I'm not sure I want to know the details." She heaved a sigh and turned to sit sideways on the bed, slammed her fist into her knee. Blast! What's that? That's wishing I minded my own business. So I know. So I can't do anything about it. I'm not going to. You understand that? It's worth no money to you, whatever you plan to get." Heat rose to his face. "No, I'll tell you the truth. It was getting tight there. Really tight. So you made me think of Pell, that's all. I figure maybe I've got a chance here." "Just like that." "Just like that. That's when I know to move. I feel the currents move and I go. It keeps me alive." She stood up, thinking about the law. There was that kind of look on her face. Thinking about conscience, one way and the other. About police. "I'll tell you," he said, and rolled over on his side, searching for his clothes. He located them on the floor and sat up, swung his feet out of bed to dress. "Riley, I don't like it to go sour like this. I swear to you, any way you like. I know you're worried about it. I don't blame you. But that ship's mine, and that's the truth." "I don't want to listen to this. I'm helm, you hear me, and I keep my hands clean. We've got our name, and I swear to you, mister, you crowd me and I'll protect it. I'm sorry for you, and I'll believe what you've told me in the hope that once a day you do tell the truth, and that I don't need to pass the word about you on the docks, but I don't think I want to hear any more about it than I have. And I don't think I'll be meeting you elsewhere. I don't think you'd better plan on that." "You wait a minute. Just wait a minute." He pulled his clothes on, caught at disadvantage, zipped the plain coveralls, and caught his breath and his dignity. "Listen, I'm sorry about that mess on the docks. It was crazy. I never intended that. Didn't expect them to be crazy here. Pell Operations is always on vid. You didn't know that. You know how he sounded coming in? Like a crazy man. Like someone crazy aiming a ship at the station. And then like someone in trouble. It was on the news channel, and thousands of people were punching in on it. Misery, Stevens, it's Pell. Alliance captains are coming in here, big names, flash names. Finity's End and Little Bear, one after another. Winifred. Pell folk know the names. And some of these free souls don't take to regulations, and some of them have privilege with a capital P. When something comes in like you came, They appreciate style, these Pell stationers. And being stationers, they're just a little ignorant about what a stupid move you pulled and what dice you're really shot out there at Tripoint. You've got a death wish, Stevens. Deep down somewhere, you are self-destructive, and you scare me. You're trouble. To me, to yourself, to a system full of ships and a station full of innocent people who had the good-heartedness to worry about you after they realized you weren't going to hit them. They think you did it on skill. On Dockside, they think something else. They think you're an ass, Stevens, and I'm embarrassed for you, but I got you in here because I was stuck with you after that scene on the docks, because you at least had the conscience to warn Dublin when you risked our lives at Viking, and my old man called me in on the carpet and looked me right in the eye and asked me what you were. When this liberty's over or before, I'm going to have to go on the carpet again and answer why I got Dublin involved with you. And I still don't know the truth. He stood and took it. It was the truth. It was all the things that had shivered down his backbone when he came in. I've done the like before, he said in a quiet voice. I told you that. Sometimes I've had to do it. But I've had no choice. I've had no choice. I came in high in the range, but I miscalculated myself, not the ship. Too long on the dock at Viking, too little sleep, too little food. I wasn't fit for it. That I admit to. But the solo runs, Lucy's not Dublin. I bend the regulations. That's how someone like me has to operate. You've got to sleep. You do it on auto, wherever you are. You're red lighting, and you've got to see to it. And you run on auto. And you have to know that, even on Dublin. You have to know that all those marginers like me, we're running like that. It's not neat and fail-safed. I thought I could do it. And I did it on luck at the end, and I should have let you pass me at Viking. I wanted out of there. If I'd delayed my run when I had a clearance, there were questions possible. And I went, that's all. And the interest in Dublin? He shrugged, arms folded. You make me nervous, she said. You. I wanted to see you. She shook her head uneasily. Most can wait for that privilege. Some don't have that much time. What's that supposed to mean? A second shrug, less and less comfortable. I don't stay in one place very long, and I'll be gone again. I'll stay low till you go. I think that's about the best thing I can do under the circumstances. When you pull out, I'll set about getting myself out of this. But no mention of Dublin. I promise that. She stared at him sidelong, a good moment. I'm not posted. You understand, my getting involved here can keep me from being posted. Ever. It's not a lark, Stevens. It was. She walked to the door, looked back. I've got maybe 10,000 I can lay my hands on. I can maybe keep you clean here, if you take that and pay your dock charge and clear out of Pell. Understand me, it's all I can get. I'll be I'll be another year working off the last 1,000 of it. But I want you off Dublin's record. I don't want you in trouble again until somewhere a long, long way off our trail. He shook his head, his mouth gone dry. He hurt inside. Blast you, there's nothing more you can get. I don't want your money. I don't want your help. I'll take out of here. I can pay the dock charges, and I'll take out. With what? That 3,000. Maybe I can get a little cargo on the side. I've got, well, maybe a little more than that. How much worth of cargo? That's my business. You answer questions to strangers about Dublin's holds? I'd think not. She set her jaw. I want you out of here. Tell your old man I'm going. I'll tell you you're taking the 10,000. You're going out of Pell with some kind of a load, mine and yours together, that at least looks honest. That at least looks honest. And you forget the debt. Don't try to pay it. Don't talk about it. Or me, or I go to station authorities. I understand you, he said very quietly. I'd take your 10, and I'd promise to get it back to you, but I don't think you'd believe it, and it wouldn't be the truth. You're throwing it away, Reilly. I very much doubt I'm going to clear this dock at all. Someone here know you? More than likely someone here that knows me. It's the publicity, Riley. I'm usually a lot quieter.
What? She asked in a lowered voice. Can they get you for? What's the worst?
Bad debts. Less than likely any merchanter would go to the police on that score. But something else. I'm not one of the names. They don't know what I might be. A pirate. They could think that. But I'll tell you the whole truth this time. I've got 2,000 cash I'm not declaring for dockside deals, and 14,000 worth of WSC money in gold under the plates. That's why I ran out of Viking like my tail was afire. Look, this stationer there, this clerk, I had to deal. He could have blown it all. It wasn't my idea. So I have the money. I can pay dock charges and I can deal for cargo. With 16 lousy contraband thousand? You think 10 more is going to help? No. And if they catch me, you can believe they're not going to inventory everything I've got, and they'd find me with more script than I'm supposed to have, and 10,000 in Pell currency, right? One question to comp, and they'd have those serial numbers and a 10,000 transaction in your name. Take it from me. I know the routines. I'll bet you do. So you keep it. Against my problems, it's nothing, that 10. I'll get out of it my way. He picked up his jacket and put it on, checked his papers in his pocket. I'll go take care of the finance, go to station offices. You just call it quits and go hang out with your cousins and say it's all nothing. Find somebody else to sleep over with and publicize it. Fast. That'll kill it. I know how to cover a trail. That, too. I wish you luck, she said, sounding earnest. You'll need it. He opened the door for her, grinned, recovering himself. Thanks, he said, and walked out, ahead of her in the hall, hands in pockets, a deliberate spring in his step. Time to visit Lucy. Time to go under the eyes of the powers that be on Pell and try to pull it out of the fire, or at least get some of the heat off. Station officers would unseal her for him if he could eel his way past a customs agent who might want to do a thorough check in his presence. Then to get out of Pell with as much cash as he could save. Maybe check the black market. There was always that. Change the name and number out at Tri-Point, trade black market at the null points, and hope no one cut his throat. Buy another set of forged papers. If he could get out with money, and if he could get out with money, and if 1,000 things. His mind began to work again more clearly, with Allison Reilly set behind him, with bleak realities plain on the table. He looked back. She was there, at the door of the sleepover, just watching. A craziness had come on him for a time. Self-destructive. She was right. On the one hand, he wanted to survive, and on the other, he was tired of trying, and it was harder and harder to think his way through the maze, even to recall what lies he had told and how they meshed. There were troops here, too. He saw them. A jolt. Not the green or the black of Union forces, but blue. Alliance militia. He recalled the build-up at Viking and the rumors of pirate hunting, and had a presentiment of times changing, of loopholes within which it had been possible for marginers to survive, being tightened suddenly and with finality. He had a record at every station in Union now, and soon a record with Alliance, and he was almost out of places. What happened? Curran asked, joining her in the shadow of the sleepover doorway, and Allison frowned at the intrusion. Been there, Curran said, with a nod toward the bar next door. Some of us had a little concern for it. Hung around, in case. What's he up to? You know the old man's going to ask. He's going back to his ship. I'm afraid it's a case of misplaced assumptions. We're quits. Allie, they've got a guard out there. She straightened, dropped her arms from their fold. What guard? On his ship. That's what's had us upset. We weren't about to break in on you, but we. Oh, it's just a misprint. That's why I'm confused. It says we've sure, but we've sure. It's supposed to be we're.
On his ship. That's what's had us upset. We weren't about to break in on you, but we've been sure. But we're sure.
Nope, I don't know how to read. I'm just having a morning. I don't know what to tell you.
On his ship. That's what's had us upset. We weren't about to break in on you, but we've sure been thinking. That's military, that.
She hissed between her teeth.
More than customs, Seal? More than customs. They say one of Mallory's officers is on station.
I heard that.
Ali, if they haul him in, is there anything he can say he shouldn't?
No. She turned a scowl on her cousin, sharp and quick. Are you making assumptions, Curry, my lad? Don't alley me.
When our watch senior sleeps over with a man the militia's got their name on, we come asking questions. Third helm has got a stake here.
You don't oversee me.
That's thanks. We've backed you. Get back to the ship. We're asking. Now.
She said nothing, followed the distant figure with her eyes. There was not so much traffic now as main day. A new set of residents had come out to work and trade in the second half of Pell's Nevernight. More industrial traffic than in midday. Passers-by wore coveralls more than suits, and traffic on the docks was heavy moving. Big mobile sleds hauling canisters, winding their way along through a straggle of partying merchanters. And troops. And others. Pell orbited a living world. Natives worked on the station, small and furtive, wearing breather masks that hissed when they breathed. They were brown-furred and primate, moved softly on calloused bare feet, and watched, two of them perched on the canisters stacked nearest Lucy's dock. She made out another of them near the security rail. She moved suddenly. They moved suddenly, took themselves elsewhere, a vanishing of shadows. She shook her head slowly, took Curran by the arm, and saw the rest of her watch standing by, Deirdre and Neil. Back, she said.
He got a gun?
No, she said. That I know for sure. But we've no need to be bystanders, do we? Chapter 6. The customs seal was still in effect, Lucy's access presenting deep shadow, a closed hatch where other ships had a cheerful yellow lighted access tube open. No lights here, only the customs barrier still in place, and grim dark metal of an idle gantry beyond. No cargo for Lucy, to be sure, but the abundant canisters of the ship were in the next berth, which had been offloading, a busy whine of conveyors, a belt empty now, while they sorted out some snarl inside, perhaps. Native workers hovered about, idle, alien life, persistent reminder of possibilities. Man had found nothing else but the quiet, avowedly gentle downers of Pell. It was perhaps out there. It was perhaps out there, a star or two away. It might happen in his lifetime, some merchanter, disgruntled with things as they were, diverting his ship off to probe the deep. But the finding of null points took probes, and probes took finance, and Lucy could never do it. Every route, everything that was settled in the beyond rode that kind of maybe, that maybe this year, maybe someone. Sandor took some perverse comfort in that no one's prerogatives were that secure. This running gnawed at him, and it was route this time. He was a contamination, a hazard. He thought about Allison Reilly and knew it for the truth, the things she had said. Maybe he should have taken the money, or anything else he could get. He walked along the line of canisters, saw nothing out of the way. Downers peered down at him from a perch atop the cans, suddenly scampered out of sight. He looked about him, walked the shadows closer and closer to the access. Lucy was not a large problem for customs, nothing that deserved as much fuss as his anxiety painted. Likely, he earnestly hoped, they had gotten some junior agent to suit up and walk through the holds to check out his claim that they were empty. The plates under which the gold was hidden were inconspicuous in hundreds of other like places in the empty cavern of the badly lighted hold. They had looked, that was all, gone off shift. It was altar day. He walked around the bending of the huge can stacks, came face to face with blue uniformed militia, two grim-faced men. Blinked, caught off balance for a moment, then shrugged and strolled the other way, suddenly out of the notion to prowl about the customs barrier. So, too many troops everywhere. Viking and here. He shifted his shoulders, persuaded his frayed nerves to calm. Better to go to the officers, get it settled up there, and not go try security out here. He walked lightly still, the more so when he had gotten the shock out of his system, tucked his hands into his pockets, and looked about him as he walked, anonymous again, among the passing mobile sleds, the passers-by that were mostly spacers or dock workers, flinched once when a knot of stationers pointed at him and talked among themselves. But the main day crowds were gone. The stationers who had seen his face on vid and gathered on the dock were decently in their beds, with the altar-day shift awake. No one bothered him. He sealed off the experience back there, sealed off the nightmare of the docking, sealed off, too, the sleepover with Allison Reilly, getting himself focused again, sorting his wits into order. He might be on any station, he might be on any station at any year of his adult life. He had done the like over and over. His knees still felt like rubber, but that was hunger. He fished up the crushed sandwich out of his pocket. A prudent idea, that, after all. And that was his breakfast, and dry, pocket-squelched mouthfuls while he walked to the edge of the loading zones and headed for Blue Dock and the offices. The Combine had me carry the gold in case, sir. Personal funds, no, sir, not transporting for general trade. He started composing his arguments in advance, against every eventuality they might haul up. The unsettled state of affairs, sir, the military. No, maybe not such a good idea to invoke that particular reason unless he had to. Unsettled state of affairs was close enough. And with luck, they had not found the cash in the hold at all. With luck, he could pay his dock charges and get out of here with some show of trying to arrange cargo. Best not to contact the black market here. They were likely to check him closer going out than coming in. But he could change Lucy's name again, out at Tri-Point. Could risk a blown ship or a cut throat to do some null-point trading, sans customs, sans police, lying off at some place like Wesson's and waiting for some ship that might be willing to trade with a freelancer, and better yet, some other marginer who might deal in forged paper. Risky business. Riskier still, with the military stirring about. An operation to tighten loopholes in which piracy was possible, also tightened loopholes in which marginers survived. I'm going to reread that. I got the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. An operation to tighten loopholes in which piracy was possible, also tightened loopholes in which marginers survived. Union and alliance in cooperation. He had never foreseen that. He swallowed the last of the dry sandwich, wadded the wrapper, and thrust it back into his pocket, Spacer's reflex. The section seal was ahead, the office section, the military dock where militia were even more in evidence. He watched the overhead signs to find his way, finally located the customs office adjunct to the dock authority, halfway down the dock, and walked through the door. It was getting close to main day. A line of applicants stood inside, spacers and ship's officers with their own difficulties. A sign advised a separate window, a different procedure for ship clearance. He fished his papers out of his pocket and presented them at the appropriate window, and the young woman looked him in the eyes and glanced down again at the ID and Lucy's faked papers.
Captain Stevens, there's a call in for you.
It started his heart to pounding. Any anomaly would, in places such as this. What ship?
Just a moment, sir.
She left the counter, took the papers with her. Terror verged on panic. He would have bolted, perhaps, with the papers. No, he would not. With the security seal on Lucy, there was no way. A long counter, a bored clutch of clerks, and business as usual separated him from his title to Lucy, and making a row about it would draw attention. He leaned there, locked his hands on the counter to brace himself in his studied weariness and exasperation, hoping, still dimly hoping, that it was Allison Reilly with a parting message. But she would not, never would, wanting no connection with him, and they would give him his papers back and unlock his hatch for him. He cursed himself for ever agreeing to that seal, but he had been tired. His mind had been on Allison Reilly, and his wits were not what they had been. The official came back. His heart leapt up again. He leaned there, trying to look put upon. "I'm really pretty tired," he said. "I'd like to get that message later if I could." That was what he should have said in the first place. That he finally thought of it encouraged him. But she looked beyond his shoulder at someone who had come up behind him, and that little shift of the eyes warned him. He turned about, facing station police. It was not the scenario he had planned. His back to a customs officer, an office full of people who had no involvement in the situation, no gun in his pocket, Lucy's papers in someone else's possession, his ship locked against him. "Captain Stevens," the policeman said, "Dockmaster wants to see you." Perhaps his face was white. He felt himself sweating. "It's altar day." "Yes, sir. Will you come?" "Is something out of order?" "I don't know, sir. I'm just asked to bring you to the offices." "Well, look, I'll get up there in a minute. I need to settle something here with customs." "My orders are to bring you now. If you would, sir." "Look, they've got my papers tangled up here. Ma'am, if I could have my papers back." He turned belly to the counter again, expecting a heavy hand and cuffs on the instant. He tried, all the same, and the woman handed him the papers, which he started to put into his inside breast pocket. The officer stopped that reach with a grip on his wrist, patted his coat with a small, deft movement even those standing closest might have missed, patted the other two pockets as well. "That's all right, sir," the officer said, "if you'll come along now." He put the papers in his pocket, left the counter, and went. The policeman laid no hand on him, simply walked beside him. But there was no escaping on Pell. "This way." The officer showed him not to the main elevator in the Niner corridor, but to a service elevator on the dock. Other police waited there, holding the door open. "I think I have a right to know what this is about," Sandor protested, not sure that union rights applied here at all, this side of the line. "We don't know," the officer in charge said, and put him into the lift with the other police, closed the door behind. "Sir." The lift whisked them up with a knee-buckling force, 2, 4, 6, 8 levels. Sandor put his hands toward his pockets, nervous habit, remembered and did it anyway, carefully. The door opened and let them out into a carpeted corridor, and one of the police took a scanner from his belt and took him by the arm, holding him still while he ran the detector over him. Another finished the job, waist to feet. "That's fine," the officer said then, letting him go. "Pardon, sir." Maybe he had rights this violated. He was not sure. He let them take his arm and guide him down the corridor, a corporation kind of hall, carpeted in natural fiber, with bizarre carvings on the walls. The place daunted him, being full of wealth, and somewhere so far from Lucy he had no idea how to get back. Perhaps it was the shock of the strung together jumps. Oh gosh. Awkward line break really threw my brain there. Perhaps it was the shock of the strung together jumps he had made getting here. Maybe it was something else. His mind was not working as it ought, or it lacked possibilities to work on. His hands and feet chilled as if he were operating in a kind of shock. He was threadbare and shabby, and as out of place here as he would be in Dublin's fine corridors. Lost. There was money here that normally ignored nuisances his size, and somehow the thought of arguing a 3,000 credit account in a place like this that dealt in millions. One of the police strode ahead and opened a door with a key card, let them into an office where a militia guard stood with a large, ugly gun at his side, and two more station security officers, and a man at a desk who might be a secretary or a clerk. Go on in, that one said, and pushed a button at the desk console. The militiaman opened the farther door, and Sandor hesitated when the police did not bid to move. Go on, the officer said, and he went, far from confident, down an entry corridor into a large room with a U-shaped table. All its places were filled, mostly by stationers silver-haired with rejuve, but there were exceptions. The woman centermost was one, a handsome woman in an expensive green suit, and next to her was another, a militia officer in blue, a pale blond man with bleak, pale eyes. Papers, the woman in the center said. He reached into his pocket and handed them to a security agent on duty in the room, who walked to the head of the U and handed them to her. She unfolded them in front of her and gave them a cursory scrutiny. Why am I here? Sandor ventured, not loud, not aggressive. Why am I here? Sandor ventured, not loud, not aggressive. But it had never seemed good to back up much either. They just asked me to come up here. They didn't say why. She passed the papers to the militia officer beside her. She looked up at him, hands folded in front of her. Helene Quinn Constantin, she identified herself, dockmaster of Pell. And he recalled then what was told about this woman who had defied a Union fleet. He swallowed his bluffs unspoken, taking her measure. There's been some question about your operation, Captain Stevens. We're understandably a little anxious here. We have statements by some merchanters that you're under ban at Marina, under a different name, on unspecified charges. This is hearsay. You don't have to answer the questions, but we're going to have to run a check. We're quite careful here. We have to be, under circumstances I'm sure I don't have to lay out for you. Your combine will be reimbursed for any unwarranted delays, and likewise your housing and your dock charges will be at Pell's expense during the inquiry, unless, of course, something should turn up to substantiate the charges. It took a great deal to keep his knees steady. There ought to be something a little more than hearsay for an impoundment. And the damage to my reputation, what repairs that? This is Alliance space, Captain. You're not in Union territory any longer. Alliance sovereignty. You came here of your own decision, without a visa, which we allow. But you have to have one to operate here. I'm personally sorry for the inconvenience, and I assure you Pell's inquiry will be brief, 3 days at maximum. There are several merchanters in from Marina. We'll be talking to them. You have a right to know that the investigation is proceeding and to confront complainants and witnesses whose testimony is filed to your detriment. You have a right to counsel. This will be billed to your combine, but should the charges prove false, as I said, Pell will stand good for the— I don't have that kind of operation. Panic crept into his voice. It was in no wise acting. I'm an independent under Wyatt's umbrella. I pay all my own costs, and I'm barely making it as it is. This is going to ruin me. I can't afford the time, not even a few days. That comes out of the little profit I do make, and you're going to push me right over into the loss column. They'll attach my ship— Captain Stevens, if you'll allow me to finish. This is something trumped up by some other marginer who doesn't want my competition. Captain, this is not the hearing. You have a right to counsel before making statements and countercharges, and I would advise you to be careful. There are penalties for libel and malicious accusation, and the ship making charges against you will likewise be detained, likewise be liable for damages if the accusation is proved malicious. And where do I get counsel? I haven't got the funds, just company funds. What am I supposed to do? Quen looked down at the table to her left. Someone nodded. Legal affairs will help you select a lawyer. And prosecute me too? Captain, Pell is the only world in Alliance territory, unless you want a change of venue to Earth itself, or extradition to Mariner. At your hearing you can make either request. But your appointed defender should make it only after you've had a chance to consider all the points of the matter. I repeat, this is not the hearing. This is only your formal advisement that allegations have been made, of general character and as yet undefined, but of sufficient concern to this station to warrant further investigation, particularly since you are Union Registry. Since you're not familiar with Alliance law, I do suggest you refrain from comment until you have a lawyer. I'm not one of your citizens. Presumably you'll seek an Alliance registry, which is the only way you can trade here. Now, on the one hand, you'll be seeking to prove the charge is false, and on the other, if they are proved false, if your record is established, then your registry would be a matter of forms. So if there's really no problem, it should, after all, save you time you might spend waiting for forms and technicalities, and I might add, at station expense. If you hope to clear all your papers and get cargo in a 3-day stopover under normal circumstances, Captain, I'm afraid you were misled. If it's processed in that time and not after it, he played for conciliation, took an easier stance, felt a line of sweat running down his face all the same. Quite so. I assure you it will be simultaneous. I appreciate it. He folded his hands behind him and tried to look comforted. He felt sick. Where am I supposed to stay, then? I'd like to have access to my ship. Not yet. Accommodations dockside, then? At any B-class lodging. Captain. Oh, no, it's Captain. That from the militia officer. The voice drew his eyes in that direction. The blue uniform was wrong somehow. Foreign. He was not used to foreignness. He had never imagined any current military force outside Union, which was all of civilization. The emblem was a sunburst on the sleeve, and several black bands about the cuff. Commander Josh Talley, Alliance Forces. Officially, why are you here? Trade. For what? Is that, Sandor asked, looking back at Quen, one of the things I should wait for a lawyer to answer? I don't see I have to make my business public. You're not obliged to answer. Use your own discretion. He thought about it, looked back at Tally, a precise military bearing, cold and clean, with a hardness unlike any merchanter he had ever seen. The eyes rested on him, unvarying, virtually unblinking, making him uneasy. For the record, he said, I get some latitude from my combine. I was on the Viking Fargon run. It never paid, and I thought maybe I could widen my operation a little, set up an account here, and do better on a cross-line run. My discretion. I have a margin to operate in. I moved it. Am moving it. How much margin, Captain? 3,000, as you claimed? And you look to compete with larger, faster ships? We're interested in the economics of your operation. What do you haul? When you can get cargo? Small items, of high value and low mass? Suddenly the room was all too close and the air unbearably warm. I couldn't do much worse than where I was, that was all. Yes, I haul things like that. Station surplus, package mail, licensed pharmaceuticals, all clean stuff, dried foods. Sometimes I carry passengers who aren't in a hurry and can't afford better. I'm slow, yes. And WSC has interest in a Pell base of operations? He weighed his answer, trying to remember what he might have said over calm when he was accounting for himself coming in. Sir, I told you. My own risk. I figured I could get some station cargo. I heard it was good here. Captain, I know something about Union law. The legal liabilities and the risks of your operation don't leave much room for profit, and it seems to me very doubtful that your combine would leave a step like yours to an independent. It's not a company move. It's a simple shift of a margin account. He grew desperate, tried to make it sound like indignation. I never violated the law, and I came here in good faith. There's no regulation against it on Union side. Financial arrangements on both sides of the line have been loose, true, and you fall into a peculiar category. I perceive you're an excellent dockside lawyer. Most marginers are. And I'd reckon if your log and ledgers are put under subpoena, we'll find they don't exist, in spite of regulations to the contrary. In fact, you'll keep no more records than the Maziani do. In fact, it's very difficult to tell a marginer from that category of ship by the quality of the records they keep. What do you say, Captain? Could that account for your economics in a cross-line run? If ever in his life he would have collapsed in fright, it would have been then, under that quiet, precise voice, that very steady stare. His heart slammed against his ribs so hard it affected his breathing. I'd say, sir, that I'm no pirate, and having lost my family to the Maziani, I don't take the comparison kindly. The eyes never flinched, never showed apology. Still, there is no apparent difference. Lucy doesn't carry arms enough to defend herself. His voice rose. He choked it down to a conversational tone as quickly, refusing to lose control. You admit she can't make speed. How is she supposed to be a pirate? A Maziani carrier could hardly pull up to a station for trade and conversation. But there is a means by which the Maziani are trading with stations in which they do scout out an area and the ships trading in it, mark the fat ones, and pick them off in the between. Marginers undoubtedly figure in that picture, trading in the null points, picking up cargo, faking customs stamps. Would you know any ships like that? No, sir. She moves fast when she's empty, your Lucy. You can inspect her rig. We have an unusual degree of concern here. The allegations made against you include a possible charge of piracy. That's not true. We advise you that the Alliance fleet is making its own investigation, apart from Pell Dock Authority. That investigation will take longer than 3 days. In fact, it will be ongoing, and it involves a general warrant, along with a profile of your ship and its internal identification numbers, a retinal print and voice print, which we'll take before you return to dockside, and all this will be passed to Wyatt's Star Combine and Mariner through diplomatic and military channels. Should it later prove necessary, that description will be passed to all ports, both Union and Alliance, present and future. But you won't be detained on our account, once that printing has been done. And what if I'm innocent? What kind of trouble am I left with? That kind of thing could get me killed somewhere for nothing. Some stupid clerk punching the wrong key and bringing that up. Some ship meeting me at a null point and pulling that out of library. You're setting me up for a target. He cast a desperate look at Quen. Can I appeal it? Have I got a choice? Military operations, Tally said, are not under civil court. You can protest through application to Alliance Council or through a military court. Both are available here at Pell, although the Council has finished its quarterly business and it's in the process of dispersing as ships leave. You'd have to appeal for a hearing at the next sitting, about 3 months from now. Military court could be available inside a month. You'd be detained pending either procedure, but counsel will be provided, along with lodging and dock charges, if you want to exercise that right. And you can apply for extensions of time if you need to call witnesses. Counsel would do that for you. I'll see what counsel says. That would be wise, Quen said. An aide had come in, padded round the inside of the U, and slipped a paper under her hands. She read it, and spoke quietly to the messenger, folded her hands over the paper on the table as the messenger slipped out again. There is an intervener in the case, Captain Stevens, if you're willing to accept. I don't understand. Reilly of Dublin Again has offered his on-board legal counsel. This would be acceptable to Pell. The blood drained toward his feet. Am I free to make up my own mind in the matter? Absolutely. I'd like to talk to them.
I think our business with you is done, pending your appointment with the military identification process. But maybe I don't want to go through that. Maybe. He stared into a row of adamant faces. Stopped. Captain, Tally said, you have your rights to resist it. The military has its rights to detain you. Your counsel can interview you in detention and advise you, if you wish. He thought of jails, of a Dubliner arriving to fetch him out, one of Allison's hard-eyed cousins. No, he said, I'll go along with the idea. That ought to do it, then, Quen said, and looked aside at Tally. Tally nodded once and economically. Sufficient, then, Quen said. We hope, Captain Stevens, that there's nothing but a mistake involved here. You're free to address the board in general. We'll listen. But I'd advise selecting your attorney before you do that, and prepare your statements with counsel's advice. I'll reserve that, then. Captain, Tally said, if you'd go with the officer. Sir, he said quietly, precisely. Ma'am. He turned and walked out with the security officer, through the outer office and into the hall, trying in his confusion to remember where he was and which way the lift was, and to reckon where he was being taken now. He was lost. He was panicked, inside corridors which were not Lucy's, a geometry which was not the simple circle of dockside. There was a small office down the corridor, 2 desks, a counter full of equipment. He stood, waited. A technician in militia blue showed up. General ID, the officer said, and the tech took him in charge, walked him through it, one procedure and the next, even to a cell sample. It was done, then, irrevocable. The information was launched, and they would send it on. The tech gave him a cup of cold water and urged him to sit down. No, he said. Maybe it was the look of him that won the sympathy. He failed at unconcern, looked back at the officer who had acquired a companion. Your party is waiting for you, the second officer said. Out by the lift. Allison, he thought, at a new ebb of his affairs. He should have accepted jail, should have refused the typing. He had fouled things up. But confinement, being shut up in a cell for Dubliners to stare at, being shut inside narrow station walls in places he knew nothing about. The officer indicated the door, opened it for him, pointed down the hall to the left. Around the corner and down. He went, turned the corner, stopped at the sight of the silver coveralled figure standing by the lift, a man he had never met. But Dubliner. He walked on, and the dark-haired young man gave him no welcome but a cold stare. C. Reilly, the pocket said, on a broad and powerful chest. Curran Reilly, the Dubliner said. Where's Allison? None of your business. You're getting into trouble, man. You're through getting into trouble, man. Hear me? I'm headed down to the exchange. I'm not looking for any. You hold it. An arm shot out, blocking his arm from the lift call button. You got any enemies in port, Stevens? No, he said, resisting the impulse to swing. None that I know about. What's your percentage in it? Curran Reilly reached in his coveralls pocket and pulled out several credit chits, thrust them on him, and he took them on reflex. You take this, go get breakfast, book into the same sleepover as last night. You don't go to the exchange. You don't go near station offices. You don't sign anything you haven't signed already. I've been printed. A great help. Really great. He thrust the credits back. Keep your hand out. I've got my own funds. The blazes you have. Shut your mouth. You go to that sleepover and stay there in that bar next door. We want to know right where to find you. We don't want any complications, and we don't want anything else stupid on your part. Keep that money and don't try to touch what you arrived with. You've got enough troubles. He stared into black and angry eyes, smothered his own temper, afraid to walk away. So how do I find the place? I'm lost. The Dubliner reached and pushed buttons on the lift call. I'll get you there. Where's Allison? Don't press your luck, mister. That's Captain, and I'm asking where Allison is. Is she in trouble? Captain, the Dubliner hissed, half a laugh, and the scowl darkened. Her business is her business, and none of yours, I'm telling you. She's working to save your hide, and I'm not here because I like the company. She's not spending any money. You've got one track in your mind, haven't you, man? Money. You're a precious duck-side whore. Go shut your mouth. You take our charity, and you'll do as you're told. The car arrived, and the door whipped open. The Dubliner held it for him, and he got in, with rage half blinding him to anything but the glare of lights and the realization that they were not alone in the car. Curran Reilly stepped in. The door shut, and the car shot away with them. A pair of young girls stood against the rail on the far side of the car, an old man in the front corner. Sandor put his hands in his pockets and felt the Reilly money in his left with the sandwich wrapper, with the adrenaline pulsing in him, and Curran Reilly standing there like a statue at his right. The girls whispered behind their hands, laughed in adolescent insecurity. "It's him!" he heard, and he kept staring straight ahead, an edge of raw terror getting through the anger because his face was known everywhere. And he had to swallow whatever the Dubliner said and did because there was no other hope but that. If the Reillys were not themselves plotting revenge for the stain on their name. A long, slow trip to Dublin, Allison had warned him, if he crossed her cousins. Revenge might recover Dublin's sullied name when the word passed on docksides after that. But he went where he was told. He knew well enough what station justice offered. Chapter 7. It was Executive Council on Dublin, and to be the centerpiece of such a meeting was no comfortable position. 76 of the posted and the retired crew, and the old man himself sitting in the center seat of the table of captains which faced the rest of the room. Michael Reilly, gray-haired with rejuve and frozen somewhere the biological near side of 40. Ma'am was in the first row after the helm seats, in that first lounge. Oh, that first huge lounge. Ma'am was in the first row after the helm seats, in that first huge lounge behind the bridge that was the posted's lounge when it was not being the council room. And with Ma'am was the rest of comm, and scan on the other side of the aisle, behind the rest of helm. And that was Megan and Jeff and others. Allison sat with impassive calm, hands folded, trying to look easy in the face of all the power of Dublin, all the array of her mother and aunts and grandmother and cousins once and several times removed. She was all too conscious of Curran's empty seat beside hers, helm 22, and Deirdre missing from 23, and Neil sitting in 24 and trying to look as innocent as she. The old man and the other captains had a nest of papers on the long table in front of them. She knew most of the content of them well enough. Some of it she did not, and that worried her. The old man beckoned, and Will, who was the senior lawyer in the family, came up to the table and bent over there and talked a while to the captains in general. Heads nodded, lips pursed, a long, slow conversation, and not a paper shuffled elsewhere in the room. The rest of the council listened, eavesdropping, and words fell out like papers and liability and piracy and Union forces. Will went back to his seat then, and the board of captains straightened its papers while Allison tried not to clench her hands. Her gut was knotted up, and somewhere at her back was her mother, who had to be feeling something mortal at her daughter's insanity. People never quit their ships. Kin stayed together, lifelong, and daughters and sons were there forever. There was Connie left, to be sure. Connie waiting elsewhere, not posted, and not entitled here. There were friends and cousins, Megan's support at a time like this. Allison was numb, convinced that she was committing a betrayal of more than one kind, and still there was no more stopping it than she could stop breathing. Win or lose, she was marked by the attempt. "Your entire watch," the old man said, 21, isn't represented here." "Sir," she said quietly, "they're settling a situation involving Lucy, before it gets out of hand." "I'll refrain from comment," the old man said, mercifully.
Yes, sir.
"I'm going to approve the request for financing, contingent on the rest of your watch applying for this transfer as you represent."
Yes, sir.
A wave of cold and relief went through her.
Thank you, sir.
"You phrase this as a temporary tour."
Yes, sir.
"You'll retain your status, then. Your watch in Helm will not be vacated."
Yes, sir," she said.
That was the risk they had run. Council supported them then.
"Thank you for the others, sir."
"I'll be talking to you," the old man said, "privately. Now, council's dismissed. Come to the bridge."
"Sir."
She said very softly, and caught Neil's eye, 2 vacant seats removed, as others began to rise. Neil, whose brow was broken out in sweat. He gave her a nod. She got up, looked back across the rows of chairs for Megan and Jeff, and met her mother's stare as if there were no one else in the room for the moment. Her mother nodded slowly, and it sent a wave of anguish through her, that small gesture. It was all right. It was, if not understood, accepted.
"Thank you,"
She said, her mother lip read. Then she turned away toward the forward door the old man had taken, which led down the corridor to the bridge. Little was working in this heart of hearts of Dublin, most of the boards dark and shut down. Most of the work they did now, besides monitor, was connected to the cargo facility and to the comm links with station. The old man had taken his seat in his chair among the rows and rows of dormant instruments and controls, with the few on-duty crew working in the far distance forward on the huge bridge. She went up to that post like a petitioner going to the throne, that great gimbaled black chair in the pit, which oversaw anything the captain wanted to look at, anywhere, instantly.
"Sir,"
she said. The old man stared at her, white-haired and powerful and young/old with rejuve that took away more hope than it gave, for the ambitious young. "Allison." Not Allie. Allison. She was always that with him. He rested his elbows on the arms of the chair and locked his hands on his middle. "You'll be interested to know that it's all stalled off. Dancer's the ship that made the complaint. I've talked to their old lady. Says she doesn't have anything personal involved, and there hasn't been word from other witnesses. I take it you're still set on this."
"Yes, sir." Soft and careful. "By your leave, sir."
He stared at her with that humorless and unflappable calm that came from being what he was. "Sit down. Let's talk about this." She had never sat in the old man's presence, not called in like this. She looked nervously to her left, where a small black cushion edged the main vid console, there for that purpose. She settled, hands on knees, eye to eye with Michael Reilly. "Applying to take a tour off Dublin," the old man said. "Applying for finance into the bargain. Let me see if I can quote your application. A foot in Pell's doorway, a legitimate alliance operation, outweighing other disadvantages. You know where the sequence of command falls, 21, if we buy into another ship. Could that possibly have occurred to you?"
"I know that council could have voted it down, and second helm approved."
If I thought you were on the moon calf dockside paints you, I'd give you the standard lecture, how a transfer is a major step, how strange it can be on another ship, away from everything you know, taking orders from another command and coping with being different in a crew that, however friendly, isn't yours. But no, I know what you're in love with. I know what you're doing, and I'm not sure you do. There's worse can happen to him than Dublin's backing. Is there? You look at your own soul, Allison Reilly, and you tell me what you do and what you're buying into. You come making requests we should throw our name behind a ne'er oh, you come making requests we should throw our name behind a ne'er-do-well marginer. We should stop a complaint an honest ship has filed. All of that. And I'll remind you of something you've heard all your life, that every Dubliner is born with one free judgment call. Always. Just one. Once you've got the right to yell trouble on the docks and to have the old man blow the siren and bring down every mother's son and daughter of us. And every time you do it right, that buys you only one more guaranteed judgment call. No Dubliner I can think of has taken much more on himself than you. You know that?
I know that, sir.
And you apply to keep your status.
To guarantee the loan, sir, begging your pardon.
Not so pure, 21.
Not altogether, no, sir.
You're jumping over the line of succession. You're ignoring the claims your seniors might make ahead of you if we bought that ship outright. Altered a command right off, isn't it? And not waiting the rest of your life without boasting. It's a maneuver, and every one of us knows it. It's a bald-faced, conniving maneuver that oversets those with more right, and you're doing it on a technicality. And how do I answer that?
Her heart was beating more than fast, and heat flooded. These pages are so frickin' thin. Her heart was beating more than fast, and heat flooded her face. I'd say they voted and passed it, sir. I'd say they have the same chance I'm taking, and there's dozens more marginers like Lucy. Maybe they don't want to take that kind of chance, and maybe they don't want it that bad. I do. Those with me do. Third Helm's alter-day watch has stayed unitary blamed long, sir, and begging your pardon, sir, it functions.
It functions,
Michael Reilly said, looking into her eyes with eyes that missed nothing,
because because they've got one bastard of a number one who's been number one in her watch too long, who's infected with godhood and who finds the stage too small.
Sir,
Let me tell you about smallness, 21. That ship you're going to is small. There's no privacy, no amenities, no luxuries, no safeties, and no relief, and no backup.
better to reign in hell.
Yes, I thought so. And what about this Stevens?
He's better off with us
Is he?
than being beached here with Pell owning his ship. Yes, sir.
The old man nodded slowly. He'll thank you. About that far. And what will you assign him when you've got his ship?
That becomes a council problem, sir, as I believe.
Let me tell you something, young ma'am.
Michael Reilly leaned forward and jabbed a forefinger at her.
That lies in your watch. Don't you hand it to council to settle. Clear?
Clear, sir.
So,
He turned to the console beside him, searched among the papers there, powered the chair around again, and offered her a handful of them.
there's a communication from Dancer. They'll withdraw the charge without protest. Understandable nervousness on their part, finding a ship in port they know isn't clean. But that's no hide off them if we guarantee it's been taken thoroughly in hand. The word's gone out by runner. No one else will file a complaint on that ship without going through Dublin first, and they've had an hour now to think it over. Something would have come in if it was going to, so I tend to agree with your judgment that it's a financial problem the man has, no merchanter grudge. So he's clear in that respect. About the military, that inquiry can't be stopped. That inquiry cannot be stopped, and that's going to be another problem that lies in your watch.
Yes, sir.
There's a voucher that will pay the dock charge, and a document of show cause from Will that's going to clear up the matter with Pell Dock Authority. They'll have to come up with an official complaint with witnesses or drop the charge on the spot and free the ship. And since Dancer's not going to stand behind the charge, it's going to die. So Lucy's cleared, at least on civil charges. There's the loan agreement for dock charges and cargo, and whatever else is reasonable in the way of outfitting. Do it proper if you're going to rig out. No need economizing. And you remember what I told you. You come between somebody and his ship. You take that from him, and you know, in your heart of hearts, you know what you're doing. And we know. And he will. You remember that. You remember your name, and you remember who you are. Yes, sir, she said softly. Dismissed. She took the precious papers, stood up, nodded in respect, and walked for the door. Stopped a moment. Stopped for a moment, a look back at the bridge, the spacious, modern bridge of Dublin, the real thing that she had desired all her life. The real thing that she had desired all her life, much better. A knot welled up in her throat, a final anger, that there was no hope of this, that it had to be the sordid, aged likes of Lucy, because that was the only way left for Dublin's excess children. She went to say good-bye, to begin the good-byes, at least, a courtesy to Megan and Connie and Jeff and Mam, which was not as hard as that to Dublin herself. Ah, heck with it. We'll plow on. We'll do one more chapter. About, what, 5, 10 pages? About 10 pages. Chapter 8. It's because I love you people so much. Chapter 8. There looked to be no change out across the docks. Sandor kept his eye on Lucy's berth, covertly, from the doorway of the sleepover. Workers moved, pedestrian traffic went its unconcerned way up and down. Main day now, and he kept his face in the shadows. Downers shrilled and piped their gossip, busy at tasks like human dock workers, moving canisters onto ramps or off, making distant echoes over the drone and crash of machinery. He entertained wild thoughts, like waiting until station lights dimmed again in the half hour of twilight which passed main day to altar day, like slipping over to that security barrier and decking some unfortunate workman, seeing if he could not liberate a cutter to get past that lock they had on Lucy's hatch. Improbable. He thought even of going to some other marginer and pleading his way aboard as crew, because he was that panicked. The thought whisked through his mind and out again, banished, because he was not going to give Lucy up. He would try the cutter first, and they would take him in for sure then, with a theft and maybe an assault charge to add to the complaints already lodged against him. Antisocial conduct. Behavior in willful disregard of others' rights. That was good for a lockup. Behavior in willful disregard of others' lives. That was good for a mind wipe for sure. Rehabilitation. Total restruct. A cutter was as good as a gun when it came to someone trying to get it away from him. It might bring about shooting. He thought that he preferred that, though he balked at the idea of using a cutter on any living thing. He was not made for this, he thought, not able to kill people. The thought turned him cold. There was Dublin, and whatever hope that gave. He held on to that. Militia passed in a group, male and female, blue uniformed. He retreated inside the foyer and waited until they had gone their way with some other business in mind. Militia. Alliance forces, Tally had said. Alliance forces. There was talk that the militia of Pell had at its core a renegade Maziani carrier, one of Conrad Mazian's captains. Signy Mallory of Norway, who had fought for the Old Earth Company, the name the Maziani used while they were legitimate. but a Maziani captain all the same. Tally. Upstairs. That was an officer of what Pell called its defense. Maybe a man who had worked with Mallory. That what was doggedly investigating him, a pirate hunting other pirates, who played by civilized rules in port. But outside port, even if some miracle got him clear of Pell, a flash across his vision of armored troops on Lucy's bridge, of fire coming back at them, and the old man dying, and his mother, and the others, of being hit and Ross falling on him, and Jal screaming for help when the troopers dragged him back through that boarding access and onto their ship. Jal and the others they had taken aboard for whatever purposes they had in mind. The Alliance played politics with Union, and maybe they wanted, at the moment, to manufacture a pirate threat to Pell interests, to justify the existence of armed Alliance ships. And if they hauled him in, the mind wipe could make sure he told the story they wanted. A paranoid fancy. Not likely. But he was among strangers, and too many things were possible. Where pirates hunted pirates and might want to throw out a little deceiving chaff. A step approached him on his left. He looked about, and a hand closed on his arm, and he looked straight into the face of Allison Reilly. "Told you to stay inside," she said. "So I'm here." The shock still had his pulse thumping. "Find out anything?" She pulled papers from her pocket, waved them in front of him. "Everything. It's covered. I've got you off clear." He shook his head. The words went through without touching. Clear. "Dublin got Dancer to withdraw the allegations. We've got a show cause order for station, and they're going to be we've got a show cause order for station, and they're not going to be able to come up with anything to substantiate it. We just filed the papers. And this," she thrust one of the papers at him, "that's an application for your Alliance registry and trade license. And Dublin's standing witness. That'll get you clear paper for this side of the line. That's to be signed and filed, but it's all in order. Our lawyer set it up." A second paper. "That's a show cause for customs, to get that seal off. They can't maintain that without the charge from Dancer. This," a third paper, "a loan, enough for dock charges, refitting, and cargo. I've got you crew. I've got you all but cleared to pull out of here. A way to outfit you with what you need. Are you following me?" He blinked and tried. Stopped believing it and looked for the strings. It was the only thing to do when things looked too good. "What's it cost?" he asked. "Where's the rest of it?" "There is a rest of it." She nodded toward the bar next door. "Come on. Sit down and look through it." He went, dragged by the hand, into the noise and closeness of the smallish bar, sat down with her at a table by the door where there was enough light to read, and spread out the papers. "Beer," she ordered when the waiter showed, and in the meantime he picked up the loan papers and tried to make sense of them. Clause after clause of fine print. 500,000 cargo allowance. 100,000 margin account. He looked at numbers stacked up like stellar distances and shook his head. "You're not going to get a better offer," she said. "I'll tell you how you got it. I'm going with you. The whole third helm Alter-Day Watch of Dublin is signing with you for this tour. Crew that knows what they're doing. I'll vouch for that. My watch. And it's a fair agreement. You say that your Lucy can make profit on margin or cargoes. What do you think she could do given real backing?" That touched his pride deeply. He lifted his head, not stupid in it either. "I don't know. My kind of operation, I know. How to get what's going rate on small deals. Lucy's near 200 years old. She's not fast. I strung those jumps getting here. Hauling, she's slow, and you come out of those jumps feeling it." "I've seen her exterior on vid. What's the inside rig?" He shrugged. "Not what you're used to. Number one holds temperature constant to 12 degrees. The rest deep cold. 15K net. It's not going to work. I can't handle that kind of operation you're talking about." It'll work. I don't know why you're doing this. Business. Dublin's starting up operations here, wants a foot on either side of the line. Putting you on margin account is convenient. And if it helps you out at the same time. The beers came. Sandor picked his up and drank to ease his dry mouth, gave the papers another desperate going over, trying to find the clause that talked about confiscations, about liability that might set him up for actions, about his standing good for previous debts. A few profitable runs, she said, and you build up an account here and you clear the debt. You want to know what Dublin clears on a good run? I'm not sure I do. It's a minor loan. Put it that way. That's the scale we're talking about. It's nothing. And there's a 10-year time limit on that loan. 10 years. Station banks. Would they give you that? Or any combine? You work that debt down, and there's a good chance that you could deal with Dublin for a stake to a refitting. I mean a real refitting. No piggyback job. Kick that ancient unit off her tail and put a whole new generation rig on. She's a good design, stable moving and jump. Some of the newest intermediate ships on the boards borrow a bit from her type. No, he said in a small voice. No, you don't get me into that. You don't get your hands on her. You think you can't do it. You think you'll fail. He thought about it a moment. What better offer, she asked him, have you ever hoped to have? And if charges come in, who's going to stand with you? Hmm? You sign the appropriate papers, you take the offer. I've gone out on a line for you, and for me, I admit that. And for me, I admit that. I get a post I can't get on my ship. So we both take a risk. I don't know but what there's worse to you than you've told. Oh, Jesus. Uh that sentence structure blows my mind. I don't know what there's worse to you than you've told. I don't know who your enemies might be, and I wouldn't be surprised if you had some. He shook his head slowly. No, I don't. Hard as it may be to believe, I've never made any I know of. Smart, at least. Survival. Reilly, if I sign those papers, I'm telling you, there's one captain on Lucy, and I'm it. There's nothing in those papers that says anything to the contrary. He drank a long mouthful of the beer. We get a witness on this? That's the deal. Station offices. He nodded slowly. Let's go do it then. It made him less than comfortable to go again into station offices to confront the dockmaster's agents and turn in the applications that challenged the station to do its worst. The documents went from counter to desk behind the counter, and finally to one of the officials in the offices beyond. A call finally into that office, where they stood while a man looked at the papers. How long, Sandor made himself ask, against all instincts to the contrary, how long to process those and to get the seal clear? I'd like to start hunting cargo. An official frowned. No way of knowing. Well, Allison said, there's already a routing application in. A lift of the brows and a frown after. None too happy, this official. Customs office, he said, punching in on the console. I have Lucy Stevens in with the forms. And after the answer, another shunting to an interior office, more questions and more forms. Nature of cargo, they asked. Information pending acquisition, and Sandor answered, in his own element. He filled the rest out, looped some blanks, letting station departments chase each other through the maze. Clear was a condition of mind, a zone in which he had not yet learned to function. Legitimate, he kept telling himself. These were real papers he was applying for. In the wrong name and under a false ID, and that was the stain on matters, but real papers nonetheless. All the same, sorry. They walked out of the customs office toward the exchange, and when he got to that somewhat busier desk to stand in line with others including spacers with on-station cards to apply for, Allison snagged his arm and drew him over to the reception desk for more inner offices. "Sir?" the secretary asked, blinking a little at his out-at-the-elbows look and the silvery company he kept. Embarrassed, Sandor searched for the appropriate papers. "Got a fund transfer and an account to open." "That's Wyatt's." Everyone knew his business. It threw him off his stride. He put the loan papers on the desk. "No," he said, "that's an independent deal." "Dublin has an account with Wyatt's." Allison leapt into the fray. "This is a loan between Lucy and Dublin. The ship is collateral. Captain Stevens hopes to straighten it up with his own combine, but as it is, Dublin will cover any transfer of funds that may be necessary. Escrow will rest on Pell." "What sum are we talking about?" "500,000 for starters." "I'll advise Mr. D." "Thank you," Allison said with a touch of smugness, and settled into a waiting area chair. A waiting area chair? And settled into a waiting area chair. Better. I liked that. Disadvantages of doing this seat of my pants. A disadvantage of reading C.J. Cherry aloud. She does not conform to traditional sentence structure. She has a very particular way of writing. I happen to adore it, but man, it is not easy to read aloud. It is tough. Sandor sat down beside her, wiped a touch of sweat from his temples, crossed his ankles, leaned back, willed one muscle after another to relax. "You let me do the talking, will you?" he asked her. "You take it slow. I know what I'm doing." His fingers felt numb. A lot of him did. Clear, he thought again. There was something wrong with such a run of luck. Ships that tossed off $500,000 as if it were pocket change rattled his nerves. He felt a moment of panic, as if some dark cloud were swallowing him up, conning him into debts and ambition more than he could handle. He had no place in this office. It was like stringing jumps and accumulating velocity without dump. There was a point past which no ship could handle what it could acquire. "Captain," the secretary had come back, "Mr. D will see you." He stood up. Allison put her hand on his back, urging him, intended for comfort. Perhaps, but it felt like a fatal shove. He walked, and Allison went behind him. He met the smallish man in his office. A wise, wrinkled face, dark almond eyes that went to the heart of him and peeled away the layers. So, well, one sat down like a man and filled out the forms, and above all else, tried not to display the nervousness he felt. "You have claims from WSC," D advised him. "Minor," Allison said. Again a stab of those dark, fathomless eyes. An elderly finger indicated the appropriate line, and he signed. "There we go," Allison said, approving it. He shook hands with the banker and realized himself a respectable if mortgaged citizen. Allison shook hands with D, and D showed them to the outer office in person. They were someone. He was. He felt himself hollow-centered. He felt himself hollow-centered and scared with a different kind of fear than the belly-gripping kind he lived in on stations, with a knowledgeable, too-late kind of dread of having done something he never should have done, a long time back, when he had walked into a bar on Viking and tried to buy a Dubliner a drink. "You come," Allison said as they walked out empty of their bundle of applications, with a set of brand-new credit cards and clear ship's papers in exchange. "Let's get some of the outfitting done. I don't know what you're carrying in ship's stores. Blast, I'll be glad to get that customs lock off and have a look at her." "Got some frozen stuff. I outfitted pretty fair for a solo operation at Viking." "We've got 5. What's our dunnage allotment?" "I really don't think that's a problem." "Accommodations?" "Cabin's 2.5 meters by 4. That's locker and shower and bunk." "Sleep vertical, do you?" Lockers are under and over the bunk. Private? Private as you like. Nice. Good as Dublin, if you like to know. He considered that and expanded a bit. If you have extra, there's always space to put it. Storage is never that tight. Beautiful. Hey, she flagged one of the ped carriers that ran the docks, a flatbed with poles, hopped on. Sandor followed, put his own card in the slot as it whisked them along the station ring with delirious ease. He had never ridden a carrier, never felt he could afford the luxury when his legs could save the expense. All his life he had walked on the docks of stations, and he watched the lights and the shops blur past, still numb in the profusion of experience. "Off!" someone would sing out, and the driver would stop the thing just long enough for someone to step down. "Off!" Allison called, and they stepped off on White Dock, in the face of a large pressure window and a fancy logo saying Wilson, and in finer print, Supplier. It was all white and silver and black inside. He swore softly, and let Allison lead him into the place by the hand. Displays everywhere. Clothing down one side, thermals and working clothes and liners, and some of them in fancy colors, flash the like of which was finding its way into docksides on the bodies of those who could afford it. New stuff. All of it. He looked at the price on a pair of boots, and it was 150. He grabbed Allison by the arm. "There are thieves in here. Look at that. Look, this isn't my class. Lucy outfits from warehouses, or dockside." She wrinkled her nose. "I don't know what you're used to, but we're not going to eat seconds all the way, and we're not using cut-rate stuff. You don't get class treatment on dockside if you don't have a little flash. And we'll not be dressing down, thank you. So deaden your nerves, Stevens, and buy yourself some camouflage so you don't stand out among your crew." He looked up the aisle at clothes he could not by any stretch of the imagination see himself wearing, stuffed his hands in his pockets. The lining of the right one was twice resewn. "You wear that silver stuff into Lucy's crawl spaces, will you? You fit yourselves out for work, Reilly. There's dockside and there's work. Find something you like, hear me?" He studied the aisle, nothing on racks, no searching this stuff for burn holes and bad seams. One asked, and they hunted it out of computerized inventory. "So I get myself the likes of yours," he muttered, thinking he would never carry it well. "That satisfy you?" "Good enough. What kind of entertainment system does she carry?" "Deck of cards," he muttered. "We can buy a fresh one." She swore. "You have to have a tape rig." "Mariner-built Delta system." "Lord, a converter, then. We'll bring our own tapes and buy some new." "I can't afford—" "Basic amenities. I'm telling you, you want class crew, you have to rig out. What about bedding?" "Got plenty of that. Gonna have to stock up on life support goods and some filters and detergents and swabs before we get to extravagances. I'd like to put a backup on some switches and systems that aren't carrying any right now." A roll of Allison's dark eyes in his direction, stark dismay. "Two of them on the main board," he added, the plain truth. "Make a list. This place can get 'em." "Will. Going to be nice, isn't it, knowing there's a failsafe?" "Going to be nice, isn't it, knowing there's a failsafe?" There is a question mark there, after all. He walked down the aisle alone, looking at the clothes. And all about him, over the tops of the counters, were other displays. Personal goods, bedding, dishes, tapes and games, utility goods, cabinets, ship's furnishings, interior hardware, recycling goods, tools, bins, medical supplies, computer, software. Music whispered through his senses. He turned about him and stared, lost in the glitter of the displays he had never given more than a passing glance to, had never come in a place like this, where his kind of finances could get a man accused of theft. A kind of madness afflicted him suddenly, like nerving himself for a bad jump. "Help you?" a clerk asked down his nose. "Gotta get some clothes," he said, and, yielding to the recklessness of the moment, "like to have it match, jacket and the rest. Some dockside boots, maybe a few work clothes. Allison was out of sight. That panicked him in more than one sense. She was probably off buying something, and the clerk was giving him that look that bartenders gave him. He pulled his new card from his pocket. "Stevens," he said, and clerkly eyes brightened. "You're the one that came in yesterday. You're the one that came in yesterday." "Yes, sir." Lord, was it only yesterday? His shoulders ached with the thought. "Got in with nothing but my account money, and I need a lot of things." The eyes brightened further. "Be happy to help you, Captain Stevens." Flash coveralls, a 75 credit pair of boots, a jacket, a stack of underwear. He looked at himself in the fitting room, haggard and wanting a shave, and took off the fine clothes and ordered it all done in packages. And he found Allison Reilly in the commodities counter, perched on a stool and going through the catalogue. "Ordered anything?" he asked with a sinking feeling. "Making a list." She tapped the screen in front of her, a display of first-line meals with real meat and frozen fruits and boxed pastries. Chocolates, he added in a sense of fantasy. He had had chocolate once. "Chocolate," she said. "There we go." "Cancel that. It's too expensive." "Chocolate and coffee. Real stuff. Leave it to me." "Allison, do you get this stuff usually?" He would have cut his throat rather than ask her an hour ago. He looked into her face and suspected something as childish as his chocolates. "For special days," she admitted. "I got some staple stuff, too." "I have 75 standard frozens. You can wipe that off." "Good enough." She wiped the stylus over part of the order. "What about those hardware items we need?" "We," it was. He took up the seat next to her and keyed up the catalogue. "I can get better prices," he muttered. "There's a discount system. Do your whole rig here and you get some off." "Better." After the moment's euphoria, his stomach was upset. He ticked through the things they really needed. He felt conspicuous sitting here at the counter in this place, dressed as he was. The list went on growing, more and more expensive, because systems were more than crew luxuries. "That do it?" Allison asked finally. He punched for the total. 5,576.2 came up on the screen. He shook his head in shock. "Can't go that." "5 of us, remember? And the hardware. That's not out of line. Put the card in. There." He shoved it into the slot. It registered. "Thank you," the screen said. He stared at it like some oncoming mass. Took his card back. She patted his shoulder. "Haircut for us both," she said. "And clean up. We're meeting someone for dinner." "Who?" "The rest of us. Who else? And why don't you get yourself a proper patch while we're at it? I looked in the directory. There's this place does them to order, all computer set up. Anything you like, on the spot. It's really amazing how it works." "Lord, Riley, does it matter?" "I'd think it would." She touched the misembroidered nymph on his sleeve. "You could do yourself a class job, or they've got the over-the-counter stuff, if you really want it." That was low. He scowled, and she never flinched. "Mind your business," he said. "If I like the tatty thing, it's my business." "You're really going to go blank like that? They'll think you're a pirate for sure." "I'll just get me a handful of tatty ones. Thanks." Lips pursed. So she knew how far she had pushed. "The name's not Stevens," she said. "That's what you're asking, is it?" "Maybe." "That's my business." And after a moment, "I'll get some blamed patch. I don't care what. But no shamrock. I'll promise you that." "Didn't think so." He nodded, gathered up his packages, all of them but the stuff they had ordered on catalog that would see ship delivery when they made the loading schedule. When? And that is where we will call it for today. Um, we're at about the halfway point. It's a pretty short book. It's not terribly long. Let me
see here. Yeah, that's probably good. Yeah, we'll put in the marker there. I've got 3 bookmarks in this book. Right now I've got one for the place we left off, one for the place I plan to get to, and one for the spot at which Merchanter's Luck ends and 40,000 in Gehenna starts. I will probably do something between Merchanter's Luck and 40,000 in Gehenna. I'm thinking Rim Runners, because that's kind of a similar time frame. Uh, pretty close. It syncs up. It meshes pretty well with Merchanter's Luck and Down Below Station, I feel. Um, I've got to do a reread of both Tripoint and Finity's End. I'll get around to that sometime this year on my own time. So right now, the game plan I'm thinking, um, overall game plan. So the end goal is to is to get around to reading Citeen. Before reading Citeen, I would like to get through 40,000 in Gehenna. Um, I would also, after Citeen, like to get through the direct sequel to Citeen, which is Read Genesis. It takes place, I don't know, like a day or a week or less after the end of Citeen. Um, After that, I have no idea. I'm not necessarily strictly planning on doing all of them in sequence or in a row, like bam, 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 bam. I'll have stuff in between. Like I haven't done a Greg Egan read in a minute. Uh, that's probably what I'll wind up doing after I get through uh, the Ascension Factor, is something by Greg Egan, possibly Distress. I'm thinking, because I think that one was written before Terranesia. I'd have to double check. Anyway, such plans. We'll see how they hold up in the cold face of harsh reality. Anyway, that's where we'll leave it for this week. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. If you're tuning in for the first time and are listening to this after the fact and are wondering why they're so rough, I do these live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Starting at about 12 noon U.S. East Coast time, Eastern Standard Time, or UTC minus 5/6. Right now, I think it's -6. Other times of the year, it's -5. Daylight savings being what it is. I don't think there's anything salient. It's it it could well have been a Warframe Wednesday today, but I'm in the midst of books, so we won't do that because Warframe just had a really big uh, update drop. Um, anyway, anyway, yeah, this Friday we'll be reading more of Death's End by Cixin Liu. Cixin Liu, there we go. Things will be crazy this week. Anyway, I think I will leave you all with that. My brain is foggy at the moment. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other. I'll see you all next time. Toodaloo!